The church was packed. 80 guests gathered to celebrate our daughter Emma's christening. My husband Cole stood beside me, holding our 6-month-old baby. My sister Whitney approached the podium where the priest had just finished the blessing. Before we head to the reception, I have something important to share. Whitney's voice echoed through the church. Something everyone needs to know about baby Emma's real father. My blood went cold. Cole looked at me, confused. Whitney pulled out papers from her purse. These are DNA test results. Official results proving that Cole Thompson is not Emma's biological father, that my sister Sienna cheated with another man, and I have proof of who the real father is. She held up a photo. My breath stopped. It was Cole. Or at least it looked exactly like Cole. Same face, same eyes, same everything. This man, Jake Morrison, is Emma's real father. I hired a private investigator, found him, got his DNA tested against Emma's. 99.9% match. Cole, you've been raising another man's baby. But here's what Whitney didn't know. That photo she was holding? It was Jake Morrison. And Jake Morrison was sitting in the third pew, right next to his identical twin brother, my husband, Cole Thompson. What happened next? Whitney never saw it coming. If you've ever had someone try to expose a secret that they completely misunderstood, stay with me until the end. Your support means everything to me. Hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. Has anyone ever tried to reveal something about you that they got completely wrong? Let's talk about it. Now back to my story. Let me take you back to the beginning. 6 months before the christening, when I found out I was pregnant. My name is Sienna Thompson. I'm 30 years old, living in Portland, Oregon, married to Cole Thompson for 3 years. We'd been trying for a baby for a year. When I finally got pregnant, we were overjoyed. Cole is an architect. I'm a high school teacher. We have a good life, a happy marriage, and now a beautiful daughter, Emma Rose Thompson. My younger sister Whitney is 26, always competitive, always suspicious, always looking for drama. She'd been convinced from day one that something was off about my pregnancy. "The timing seems weird," she'd said when I announced it. "You and Cole were supposedly trying for a year. Then suddenly you're pregnant right after that work conference you went to." "That's how pregnancy works, Whitney. It happens when it happens." Or maybe something happened at that conference. I'd brushed it off. Whitney had always been paranoid, always seeing conspiracies. I didn't think much of it, until the christening. 6 months later, when she decided to expose me in front of our entire family, our church community, and Cole's parents. The church service had been beautiful. Father Michael blessed Emma. We made our vows as godparents were named. Everything was perfect. Then Whitney asked to say a few words. I assumed she wanted to give a nice speech about being an aunt. Instead, she went to the podium, pulled out papers, and destroyed what should have been a sacred moment. "I know this is unconventional," she began, "but I couldn't let this continue. My sister Sienna is living a lie, and Cole deserves to know the truth." Cole's grip on Emma tightened. "Whitney, what are you doing?" 6 months ago, Sienna went to a conference, a teacher's conference in Seattle. She told you she was there for professional development, but I hired a private investigator. I needed to know the truth, and what I found will shock everyone here. She held up the papers. DNA test results. Emma's DNA compared to Cole's DNA. 0% probability of paternity. Cole, you are not Emma's biological father. The church erupted. Gasps. Whispers. Cole's mother actually stood up. "What is she talking about?" "I'm talking about infidelity, about lies, about Sienna cheating on her husband and passing off another man's baby as his." I felt frozen. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. "Whitney, you're insane. Cole is Emma's father." "Then explain this." She held up a photo, a printout from what looked like LinkedIn, a professional headshot. "This is Jake Morrison, software engineer from Seattle. He attended that same conference, in the same hotel, and when I sent his DNA for testing, hair sample my investigator obtained, it came back as a 99.9% match to Emma. This is your daughter's real father." The photo showed a man who looked exactly like Cole. Same sandy brown hair, same blue eyes, same facial structure, same everything. Cole stared at the photo, then at me. "Sienna?" "Cole, I can explain." Then a voice from the third pew, male, calm, with a hint of amusement. "Actually, I can explain." Everyone turned. A man stood up. He looked exactly like the photo Whitney was holding, exactly like Cole, because he was wearing the same face. "My name is Jake Morrison. I'm the man in that photo. And yes, I attended the Seattle Teachers Conference 6 months ago, but I think there's been a misunderstanding." Whitney's face went pale. "You're here?" "I'm here because Cole invited me. He's my brother, my identical twin brother." The church went completely silent. You could hear breathing, nothing else. Jake walked to the front of the church, stood next to Cole. They looked identical, perfect mirrors of each other. Same height, same build, same face, same everything. "We're identical twins," Cole said quietly. "Jake lives in Seattle. I live here in Portland. We don't see each other often. But yes, we're brothers. Genetically identical brothers." Whitney was shaking. No, that can't be right. The DNA test." "Identical twins have identical DNA," Jake interrupted. "If you tested my DNA against Emma's, of course it would show a match, because I have the exact same DNA as my brother, her actual father, Cole." But the investigator said, "Your investigator is an idiot," Jake said bluntly. "If he tested my DNA against Emma's and didn't know I was an identical twin to her father, of course the results would look like I'm the father. Identical twins share 100% of their DNA. A paternity test can't distinguish between us." Father Michael, the priest, spoke up. "Is this true? You're identical twins?" "Yes," Cole and Jake said in unison. Then they smiled. It was almost eerie how identical they were. "And Sienna knew about your brother?" "Of course," I said, finding my voice. "Jake lives in Seattle. I was at a conference in Seattle 6 months ago. I met him for coffee. He wanted to hear about how Cole and I were doing, about our marriage, about the baby we were trying for. It was completely innocent." "I can confirm that," Jake added. "We met at a Starbucks near the conference center, talked for maybe an hour, about Cole, about their marriage, about family. Nothing inappropriate, nothing remotely romantic." Whitney looked at the photo in her hand, at the DNA results, at Cole and Jake standing side by side. But the investigator said, "Your investigator saw a photo of a man who looked like Cole, found out he was at the same conference as Sienna, obtained DNA, illegally, I might add, and tested it against Emma, got a positive match, and jumped to conclusions, without doing basic research, like checking if the man had any siblings, particularly identical twins." Cole's father stood up. "For those who don't know, my sons are identical twins. Jake moved to Seattle 5 years ago for work. They don't see each other often, but they're very close. And yes, they look exactly alike, because they share 100% of their DNA. Which means," Jake continued, "any DNA test comparing me to Cole's daughter would show me as a potential father, because genetically we're the same person, but biologically, emotionally, and legally, Cole is Emma's father, not me. I've never even met Emma until today." He looked at Emma, still in Cole's arms, smiled. "She's beautiful, by the way. Looks like our side of the family." Whitney stood there, papers in hand, photo in the other, completely frozen, the realization of what she'd just done spreading across her face. I didn't know. The investigator didn't mention." "Your investigator didn't do his job," Cole said coldly. "And you didn't think to ask me. You didn't think to verify. You just assumed the worst. Hired someone to invade my brother's privacy, obtained his DNA illegally, and then publicly accused my wife of infidelity, at our daughter's christening, in a church, in front of our entire family. I was trying to protect you. By humiliating my wife, by disrupting a sacred ceremony, by making baseless accusations?" Father Michael interrupted. "Perhaps we should move this to the parish office. This is not the place." "No," I said firmly. Everyone heard the accusation. Everyone should hear the truth. Whitney hired a private investigator to follow me, to follow Jake, to illegally obtain DNA samples, to test them against our daughter. And when the results came back positive, because of course they would for an identical twin, she jumped to the worst conclusion. Without verification, without research, without even asking me. I saw the photo and assumed it was another man, even though Jake looks exactly like Cole, because they're identical twins. Did you even consider that possibility? The investigator said, the investigator was wrong, and you trusted him over your own sister, over your brother-in-law, over basic common sense. Cole's mother approached Whitney. You have caused tremendous harm today, to this family, to this sacred ceremony, to a marriage, all because you couldn't mind your own business. I thought I was helping. You thought you were exposing a scandal. You were looking for drama, looking for something to be wrong, and you created a disaster based on incomplete information and a fundamental misunderstanding of genetics. Whitney looked at me, tears streaming. Sienna, I'm sorry. I didn't know. You didn't bother to find out. You hired an investigator, spent money, obtained DNA illegally, created this whole presentation, and never once thought to ask me, to talk to Cole, to verify your information. You just wanted to be right, to expose something, to create drama. Jake stepped forward. And for the record, I'm considering pressing charges. You obtained my DNA without consent. That's illegal in Washington state. Your investigator committed a crime, and you used the results to publicly defame your sister. I can sue for invasion of privacy, for defamation, for harassment. Please, I didn't mean... What you meant doesn't matter. What you did matters, and what you did was illegal and harmful. Father Michael gently guided everyone toward the parish office. The guests were ushered to the reception hall by church staff, but our immediate family stayed. Whitney, her husband Brian, Cole and I, Jake, our parents, and Cole's parents. In the office, Father Michael closed the door. This is a serious situation. Whitney, you've made very serious accusations, based on faulty information, and you've disrupted a sacred sacrament. What do you have to say? Whitney collapsed into a chair. I thought I was protecting Cole. I thought Sienna had cheated. The investigator seemed so certain. The DNA results seemed conclusive. I never thought about twins. I never considered... You never asked, I interrupted. Never verified. Never thought to check basic facts, like whether the man in the photo had any connection to Cole. A simple Google search would have shown that Jake Morrison and Cole Thompson are brothers. I didn't Google him. I just saw the photo, the conference overlap, the DNA results, and made assumptions. Terrible, harmful assumptions. Jake pulled out his phone. I want to know about this investigator. What's his name? Whitney hesitated. Marcus Webb, Private Investigations. Jake typed on his phone, showed the screen to Cole. This guy? Yeah, that's him. He's not licensed in Washington or Oregon. He's not a licensed private investigator at all. He's a freelance researcher who advertises on Craigslist. No credentials, no training, no legal authority. Whitney's face went white. What? You hired an unlicensed investigator who obtained DNA samples illegally, who performed tests without consent, who made claims without verification, and you paid him how much? $5,000. For the investigation, the DNA tests, the report, you paid $5,000 to an unlicensed investigator for illegal DNA testing and a report that was completely wrong. Because he didn't do basic research, didn't know about identical twins, didn't verify anything. Brian, Whitney's husband, stood up. Whitney, what have you done? I thought I was helping. Everyone thinks Sienna is so perfect. Perfect marriage. Perfect baby. I wanted to show that she's not. That she makes mistakes, too. So this wasn't about protecting Cole, I said quietly. This was about tearing me down. You wanted to find something wrong, wanted to prove I'm not perfect. So you hired someone to investigate me, to follow me, to find dirt. I just wanted the truth. You wanted a scandal. And when you thought you found one, you couldn't wait to expose it. At my daughter's christening, in front of everyone, without verification, without compassion, without even basic fact-checking. Cole stood up. I want that investigator's contact information. I'm reporting him to the authorities for practicing without a license, for illegal DNA collection, for fraud. And I'm pressing charges, Jake added, for invasion of privacy, for illegal use of my biological materials, for defamation. And we're considering a lawsuit, I added, for defamation, for emotional distress, for disrupting a religious ceremony, for damaging our reputation. Whitney looked panicked. Please, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I'll apologize publicly. I'll make it right. You can't make this right, Cole said. You accused my wife of infidelity in a church, in front of our baby, in front of God. That's not something you can just apologize away. Father Michael spoke gently. Perhaps everyone needs time to cool down, to think, to pray. This is a serious situation, but it can be resolved with grace, forgiveness, and consequences. Consequences? Whitney asked. Yes. What you did was wrong, legally, morally, and spiritually. There must be consequences, but there can also be redemption, if you're willing to do the work. We left the church. The reception was canceled. Guests had already left, most in shock, some in anger, all confused. Over the next week, several things happened. Cole reported Marcus Webb to the Oregon and Washington authorities. Turns out he'd been operating illegally for years. He was shut down, faced charges for illegal DNA collection, lost his business. Jake filed a formal complaint for invasion of privacy. The DNA lab that processed the tests, a legitimate lab, was horrified. They confirmed they'd been told Jake had consented to the testing. When they learned he hadn't, they cooperated fully with Jake's lawyer. Whitney and Brian came to our house 3 days later. Both looked exhausted. We want to apologize, Brian said. Whitney told me what she was planning. I should have stopped her. Should have asked more questions. Should have insisted on verification. I'm sorry. Whitney was crying. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was jealous of your perfect life, your perfect marriage, your perfect baby. I wanted to find something wrong, wanted to prove you weren't perfect, and I destroyed a sacred moment because of it. Why were you jealous? I asked. You and Brian have a good life, a good marriage. We've been trying to get pregnant for 2 years, failed IVF, failed treatments, and then you got pregnant so easily, had a beautiful baby, and I was bitter, so bitter, I wanted to knock you down, make you not so perfect. So you tried to destroy my marriage? Yes, and I'm sorry. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. Public apology, therapy, whatever you need. Cole spoke. We need space, time. We need to decide if we can move forward with you in our lives. What you did wasn't a mistake. It was malicious, calculated, based on jealousy and a desire to hurt. I know. I understand. We'll give you whatever space you need. They left. Cole and I sat in silence. Do you want to press charges? He asked. Sue her? I don't know. She's my sister. But what she did was terrible, illegal, harmful. You have every right to pursue legal action. But she's family. Family doesn't do what she did. Family doesn't hire investigators to dig up dirt. Family doesn't publicly accuse you of infidelity at your baby's christening. Jake called later that night. I filed the complaint. The investigator is being charged. The lab is cooperating, and I'm considering a civil suit against Whitney for the illegal DNA collection. What do you want us to do? I asked. That's up to you. She's your sister, not mine. But what she did to you, to your marriage, to your reputation, to Emma's christening, that's unforgivable in my book. I'm so sorry you got dragged into this. I'm glad I was there. Glad I could expose the truth immediately. Imagine if I hadn't been at the christening. If you'd had to spend days or weeks trying to explain about identical twins, she would have done massive damage. Why were you there? Cole said you couldn't make it. I changed my mind last minute, wanted to meet my niece, wanted to support you guys, and I'm glad I did. 6 months have passed. Emma is 1 year old now. Happy, healthy, completely unaware of the drama that unfolded at her christening. Whitney and Brian attended court-ordered therapy. For jealousy, for impulsivity, for boundary violations. Whitney sent monthly letters, apologizing, explaining her progress, asking for forgiveness. We didn't respond for the first 3 months, needed space, needed to heal, needed to decide what role, if any, Whitney would have in our lives. Then Emma's first birthday came. We had a small party, family only, Cole's parents, my parents. Jake came down from Seattle, and we invited Whitney and Brian, on conditions, no drama, no assumptions, no investigations, just showing up, being supportive, being family. They came. Whitney held Emma for the first time since the christening, cried. "She's beautiful. I'm so sorry I tried to destroy this, destroy your family." "You didn't destroy it. You damaged it. But we're healing. I'm in therapy, working through the jealousy, the need to compete, the desire to tear others down when I'm struggling. It's hard work." "Good. Keep doing it." Brian pulled Cole aside. "We're starting adoption proceedings. Decided that if we can't have biological children, we'll provide a home for a child who needs one. Whitney's therapist suggested it, channeling the desire for a child into helping one who exists and needs a family." "That's good. Really good." Over the following months, Whitney and I rebuilt slowly. Coffee once a month. Supervised visits with Emma. Boundaries clearly defined. She couldn't ask invasive questions. Couldn't make accusations. Couldn't assume the worst. It was hard. Trust was broken. But family is complicated. And sometimes, with work and consequences and genuine change, things can heal. Jake became a regular part of our lives. Visits every few months. FaceTime calls with Emma. Uncle Jake, who looks exactly like Daddy. Emma thinks it's hilarious. The private investigator, Marcus Webb, was convicted of fraud and illegal DNA collection, lost his business, faced fines and probation. The DNA lab implemented new verification procedures, requiring explicit consent, verifying identities, ensuring tests are legitimate before processing. And our church community? They rallied around us, apologized for witnessing such a painful moment, offered support. Some sent cards, some brought meals, some just showed up. Father Michael did a sermon about assumptions, about verification, about grace and forgiveness and consequences, about how families heal. He didn't mention us by name, but everyone knew. I'm Sienna Thompson. I'm 31 years old. 6 months ago, my sister Whitney tried to expose me as a cheater at my daughter's christening. She stood up in church, announced I'd had an affair, showed DNA test results proving my husband wasn't Emma's biological father. She had a photo of the real father, Jake Morrison, a man who looked exactly like my husband, because Jake Morrison is my husband's identical twin brother. Whitney hired an unlicensed investigator who illegally obtained Jake's DNA, who tested it against Emma's DNA, who got a 99.9% match, because identical twins share 100% of their DNA. The investigator didn't know. Whitney didn't ask, and she nearly destroyed my family based on a fundamental misunderstanding of genetics. But Jake was there, at the christening, sitting in the third pew. When Whitney revealed her evidence, he stood up, explained he was Cole's identical twin, that the DNA match was meaningless, that Whitney's entire investigation was based on faulty assumptions. The investigator was shut down, charged with fraud. Whitney faced consequences, therapy, estrangement, slowly earning back trust through genuine change. And my family? We're healing. Emma's 1-year-old now, happy, surrounded by love. From her father Cole, from Uncle Jake, from grandparents. And yes, from Aunt Whitney, carefully, with boundaries, with earned trust. Sometimes jealousy makes people do terrible things. Sometimes assumptions destroy relationships. Sometimes evidence is completely wrong because people don't understand basic science. Identical twins have identical DNA. A paternity test can't distinguish between them. Any investigator worth their license would know that. But Whitney hired someone unlicensed, someone incompetent, someone who saw a match and jumped to conclusions. and it nearly cost me everything: my marriage, my reputation, my relationship with my sister, a sacred moment at my daughter's christening. But truth has a way of revealing itself, especially when the person being accused of fathering your baby is sitting right there in the church, looking exactly like your husband, because he's your husband's identical twin. Whitney learned that investigations require verification, that assumptions require fact-checking, that jealousy requires therapy, not private investigators. And I learned that family is complicated, that forgiveness is possible, but that trust, once broken, takes years to rebuild, with consequences, with boundaries, with genuine change. Emma will grow up knowing she has two men who look exactly alike, Daddy and Uncle Jake. Both love her, both are family, both share the same DNA, but only one is her father, and everyone knows exactly who that is now. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support truly means the world to me, and don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. I love reading every single one of them. Each comment inspires me to keep creating stories for you. See you next time.